Hello and welcome to Totally Casual Gaming. I am Fontay or Austin, and this is week 2 of the Totally Casual Gauntlet. And well, I finished Final Fantasy 15, and I'm moving on to The Last Guardian as my next game. Um, so with Final Fantasy 15, the ending was awesome. Leading up to it was okay. It got a little heart wrenching in the story. I was about halfway through last time, so I was actually a little bit farther than I thought I was. But um, it was really good, actually. The story, like the plot and everything, was really good, and the dialogue with the characters intertwining was really good. Really made you like feel for the characters and like see their kind of development, even if it's a little bit. There's not as much like crazy character development, but there's a little bit in there, and you see that through the story and how the characters become a little bit closer. At the beginning, the four main characters I talked about last time, Noctis, Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto, they're definitely friends, but they seem to just be friends. They're comfortable with each other. They're comfortable with each other, and they can talk to each other well. However, at the end, they're like brothers. They're like four brothers together, and so it's really heart wrenching at the end. I won't spoil anything, but yeah, it's definitely something I would suggest to play if you wanted to play. If you liked it, like the beginning says, which I think I mentioned this last time, but if not, like the beginning of the game says when you boot it up, it's a game for fans and for newcomers. So it's definitely one I would suggest to play. Um, for a while, I think I finished under just 40 hours at level 45. And at level 45, the final fight feels like a final fight. Like it takes a while, and it takes a little bit of strategy and some items to use that normal Final Fantasy-esque way. However, if you wanted to be a little bit higher, I would definitely suggest being probably at least level 50 when you get to the end. And if you play the game, you'll see why. I was level 45 and I was able to do it, so it wasn't that bad. But I did kind of mess around for a long time, so I never hit that difficulty spike I've heard some people talk about in the game. I think I can see where it's at, but I kind of was just messing around with side quests a lot in the game, so I was always a little bit over leveled, more so than I think other people might have been, just trying to play the story. So I would definitely suggest playing a lot of side quests, even though they're a little monotonous, just being like, oh, go kill this thing, or oh, go get this thing and bring it back. It's not a huge variety in the side quests. It just was something, which is one of the things that I think the game really lacked, was just diversity in the gameplay. Now, for me, going back from side quest to story mission, side quest to story mission kind of kept it fresh. The story missions are definitely like, because it's story driven, are definitely the great part of the game, but the side quests are very monotonous and just kind of like, why am I doing this? I'm just helping these people, which, I mean, it's nice to help the people, but it didn't feel, I guess, as satisfying as I would want it to. But the final fight was amazing. It was kind of a two-parter in normal Final Fantasy. Well, actually, not normal Final Fantasy. Yes, it was like different monsters or different enemies, I should say, in the final area fight kind of thing. And usually in Final Fantasy, there's like 3 levels or 5 levels. The classic thing where like the final enemy is like 3 forms or 5 forms or 20 forms, whatever. This was actually just a couple different enemies that you fight, which both were awesome. I mean, Frankie was like, I was actually share playing for Frankie, and he was just like dying at how amazing the fights were. He was just, I was doing all this, crazy actiony stuff, and he was just like freaking nerdgasming over all of it. So if that can tell you anything, and you can probably imagine Frankie screaming and wooing and all that stuff, just going nuts. It was pretty good. But anyway, on to my first impressions of The Last Guardian. I haven't gotten too far. The only thing I have off of The Last Guardian is watching Catacris's video, which actually he just put up, I believe, today, if I'm not mistaken, maybe yesterday. It was recent. And so I played a little bit, and then I watched his video, and that's all I've done. and I've gotten to the point where was I exactly? You have to, like, the very first time you get with the smell stuff, or like this big pot of smelly stuff that Trico, which is the guardian, the monster, comes after, and he won't go away from it. He's really attracted to that smell, so you have to close it so then you can progress. Right after that is where I'm at, and I actually have some things to talk about with Trico and how the interactions between the main character, which main character doesn't have any as a name, so I'm just going to keep calling him the main character or the boy. But I really like how they started the game, where basically you're just thrown in, and it does tell you what the controls are, like in the top right or top left, I don't remember. One of the two, it'll tell you, oh, this button does this, but it doesn't tell you like what to do. You kind of have to figure it out. However, there are little hints, if you take a little bit time, not too long. It's not like, oh, this is taking forever, and then it tells you it's a good amount of time. There's a voiceover from the boy, I guess, being an older man telling the story of the Last Guardian, and what he's it sounds like he's telling a story, and he is basically voicing over when you're playing. And so, for example, I couldn't figure out what to do at the very beginning when I first woke up. I tried to go near the monster, the Guardian Trico, and basically he would just yell at me, and I'd fall over and get pushed away. And then I saw these barrels, and I was like, okay, I'll try and give those to him. So I tried to give the barrels to him, and because I didn't know what else to do with them. There's nothing else to do with them. So I was like, well, maybe he does something with the barrels, or maybe they heal him or something, because he said he was hurt. And so I gave him the barrels, maybe it's like a medicine barrel or something, and he just didn't do anything with it. He would just yell at me. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. And then about pretty much at that time where I thought that, the voiceover says he was attacked and there are spears in him, and I better pull those out. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to get the, spears out of him so that he can heal. And so I pulled the spear out, and then he kicks you and knocks you out. You wake up later, and then he's like, oh, now he's hungry. So I was like, oh, okay, well, then now the barrels. And so then I'd actually done the next thing before I was supposed to, which actually I kind of thought was cool, because it wasn't like, it wasn't like normal things where it's like you have to do this, then this, then this. It's like you could have done everything else and then done the first thing, and then it all just kind of happened, So I actually liked that part a lot. And then it continues to do that, but it does it less and less, and I've gotten to the point where I don't even hear him at all anymore. There are some points where I was like, well, what do I do now? And I just had to figure it out, which I think is a lot of the aspect of the game. I actually am kind of enjoying it, but also a little aggravated at times. But I think I'm only aggravated because I'm used to games being so linear and so straightforward. Even the games where you say they're not straightforward, they're more straightforward than this. Like it's not like this kind of puzzle where it's like, and I'm going to go off of Caddy's video a little bit here. If you haven't watched Kid Icarus, he's actually a really good reviewer of video games, so I would definitely check him out. But anyway, going off of that, basically he was talking about where the environment is the puzzle, and something in that aspect. And I really like that idea that he was saying. And so basically, to reiterate what he was saying, is that it's not a puzzle where you see all the parts and you just have to put it together and figure out how it goes. It's you are going through the world, and getting through the world is your puzzle. And basically, you just look at everything. You have to look at the whole aspect of where you're at, everything there, and figure out what you need to do, where you need to go, and how to get there. And so, for me, the first time was really hard for me to figure out where to go. Was there's a moment whenever Trico had just attacked the soldier people for the first time. And then after that, you have to actually get on his head when he pokes his head through a door, which you actually saw before. You saw him do it before, so I knew that was a mechanic. And you have to get on his head, which then gets you up to another ledge, which then you use to get onto a chain that's above your field of view if you don't look up. And so for this, you really had to. This is I think the first time you really had to look everywhere to understand what to do. And after that, it wasn't too bad. And then actually, right after that, I was like, okay, so that taught me to really look, like really look around to see where to go. And then the next time, I was like, I kind of was able to put the steps together a little bit better. Because before you had to use this tail to get down. So all the mechanics you needed for this next part that I'm going to explain had already been given to you, which was really nice. It's a very nice progression of, okay, you see this and you realize, oh, maybe I could do this, and you have to think. It makes you think on what to do. But at the same time, it helps you. But it doesn't help you in like and I'm going to reference Aaron here, Ego Raptor, where it's like, oh, Mega Man, do this. If you've ever seen that video, you'd understand. Basically, somebody popping up and being like, oh, well, this is press this button to do this, or you need to do exactly this, and then you succeed. It helps you in the way giving an example in the game again. I think is the best way to give examples. Is basically I was at the bottom of a very tall room. And I was like, okay, well, how do I get up? And then Trico, the monster, was looking up. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the direction I need to go, which it was. So it's kind of directing you in where you need to go exactly. And then I get on top of him to reach the ledge. Well, then he actually gets up higher for me and gets me to where I don't have to climb this whole wall. I just have to climb about half of it at that point, which I thought was really awesome, too. So it's like, you can get him to go this way, where you can do the whole climb, or you can see that Trico's a smart animal, and it's not like you're not controlling him at all, which I really, really like. It forces you to interact with a character that you have no control over, which Team Ico has done before, but in this aspect, it's very different. You rely on each other so much more. Instead of in Ico, where you basically are controlling the female character the whole time, not literally with the controller, but you're telling her, hey, do this, from what I remember at least. Or, I mean, she only does certain things. Trico can do so many things. And it just depends on what you're doing in the game. And there's a lot of learning to it. There's a lot of learning. Like I was saying, and going back to the example I was going to explain, basically, I learned all of this. I learned all this through the gameplay before. And I went out on the ledge. And the ledge led to nowhere. It led to the end of a wall. And I went around the wall. Well, then I was like, okay, well, if I get out of Trico's sight, he's going to follow me. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just see what happens. So I go out on the ledge, and I go around the corner where Trico can't see me. So then he jumps up on top of the wall that I went through. And he can't progress there because it's just a little ledge on the that only the main character can go on. Is small enough to go on. Trico's a giant monster. So he's up on top of the wall. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with this? This has to mean something. Like, there's no reason for him to be up there for no reason, which sometimes there is. But I was like, this is the only way to progress. So I started looking around. I was like, oh, there's a hole in the wall, a passage to go through where Trico's at. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I need to get up on him. But how do I do that? But it clicked that he's facing towards me, and on the other side of the wall is a staircase upward. And that must be where his tail is, so I can just grab his tail, climb up him, and then get on the passage, and he can come follow me. And that's exactly what it was. So it was the combination of looking around, knowing that you can climb on Trico, knowing that you can use his tail as basically a chain to climb up, just all that combination, and like using and kind of like in a way manipulating him to get him to where you want him to through him following you. It was just a combination of all these things that you've learned but not necessarily been told what happens. And it's really nice. And I was going to say this game is very slow at the beginning, which it is. And that I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it as much as I wanted to or was expecting to. However, watching Caddy's video, he actually was saying that it's very slow in the beginning, but that's kind of the progression of the game. Showing that, and I don't think he said this exactly. This is my words. For me, it shows almost the progression of a relationship. And I mean any relationship, like girlfriend, friend, parents, brother sister, that are born. That in the beginning it's really slow. You don't know a whole lot about each other, and you don't know a lot how to react or interact with that person or react to them actually. And so it's very slow in the beginning, a relationship. But then as the relationship progresses, becomes more active, more fun, more you know what to do, you know what you can do, you know what that person enjoys and what you enjoy and what you can do together. And I feel like the game is going to, and I haven't gotten to the point where I know this yet, but I feel like the game is going to show that very well. Basically, where the monster Trico and the main character are able to interact with each other even better. Because I know there's a mechanic where I can point and have him go in a direction, but he doesn't answer to that yet. And I think that's just because they don't know each other well enough yet, and Trico doesn't understand that command yet, and so I have to manipulate him to do it. Versus later on, I know because I saw in the video that you can tell him to go a certain direction, and I think it's just a matter of progression. And so, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about almost said Guardians of the Galaxy, The Last Guardian, for right now. But I hope you enjoyed this video, seeing what I think of the game, my thoughts on the game. If you have any recommendations on another game or what you want me to talk about the game, anything, or maybe even a comment about the game where you're like, I think this and I can talk about it, then leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.